It's such a great way to raise children that I hope they at least see that part of it, being outside and being around animals and being able to care for the land and the livestock is such a beautiful thing.
Welcome back to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens. I've missed you. This is a show for people who embrace the warm and cozy spirit of everyday living in the Midwest. And from the blog Random Sweets, I'm your host, Stacy Mergenthal. I cannot think of a better way to kick off season 2 than with first-generation Millennial rancher Calli Williams from T.W. Angus near Letcher, South Dakota. Calli and Tate Williams' love story began when they met at the South Dakota State Fair. Tate asked Calli to show his heifer. Now, having grown up on a farm with a small herd of cattle herself and a love for 4-H, she did it. And that is all it took to begin their lives together, building a family and pouring their hearts and hard work into T.W. Angus, which is their purebred Angus seedstock operation, and also they have a direct-to-consumer beef business. In addition to talking about her days on the ranch with their boys, Jack and Tommy, we discuss Angus marketing, selling bulls and genetics, their Angus seedstock operation, why they started their retail beef business and how you can buy it, challenges of being first-generation ranchers. We talk about some children's books that her boys like, and she gives us some coffee and a few restaurant recommendations in Mitchell and Sioux Falls areas. Of course, it wouldn't be a Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens episode if we didn't talk about food, like tacos and leftover shredded beef chuck roast burritos. And Calli reminisces about her Grandma Vanita's coffee cake recipe that will now replace the one that I've used for years. Plus, she tells us what animal she's terribly afraid of and says it will never be on their farm. Can you guess what it is? You can see photos and get the recipe and the links from this episode on randomsweets.com, so head over there while you're listening. And let's go learn more about Calli Williams over a piece of coffee cake. Calli, I'm so happy to have you on Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. And not only does this podcast community of Midwesterners get to meet you today, but I get to meet you today too. I've followed you on social media for maybe a couple of years now. We're in some of the same circles of people in South Dakota and the ag industry and the jackrabbits. I know you went to SDSU, so the jackrabbits and
Go Jacks.
Right. And even, most importantly is that my little sister Calli with a K.
Yes.
She has known you for I don't know how long, and I'm not sure how you met, but she knows you and is a beef customer of TW Angus. And so when I started this podcast last year, the only person that she has recommended, she's like, you have to do a podcast with Calli Williams.
Oh, yes. So it is such a small world. So Calli and Calli with a K and then Calli with a C. We would point that out every Saturday is actually when I got to see Calli when she would waitress at Cook's Kitchen. I would draw for her when my parents and I would go there for breakfast. It was a tradition of ours.
That's you?
That would be me. Yes.
I remember her talking about a little girl. Her name was Calli with a C, but that was so long ago. I didn't know that was you.
Yes. So a very long friendship. Yes. So just full circle, staying in the Brookings community, stayed connected with her. And then now as a TW Angus customer, it's just, like I said, a long-term friendship. I love it.
That's great. That's a great story. I know this episode is just going to be full of interesting things. I know I'm going to learn a lot and it'll be fun just because you're so multifaceted. You're a mom. And okay, so you posted an Instagram picture and it was so quintessential. You're driving a pickup, I think, right? You're hauling calves. You're following your husband. So you're driving. You have your two little children in the back seat. The one is throwing a ball in the air with this crazy face. And you have children's Tylenol in a cup holder and coffee in a cup holder and like veggie fries, right? Yeah. So mom, that's like a perfect picture of what you're doing. Plus you work full time. It looks like you write articles and content for some different mediums. You're first generation ranchers, right? Like there's so many things that we get to talk about today and learn. So Oh, and then today, I love that you do your schedule on Mondays. You do kind of a what you have this week. And I always think, is there still 8 hours in there for her to sleep?
Somehow I managed to do that. I do.
Here was your schedule this week. Besides giving time, you're giving us your time here on this podcast today, but you have work, you have soccer practice and a game. Well, probably not you, right? But your
Right.
kids, obviously.
Yeah.
You're sorting calves, filling semen tanks. You're planning a meeting for harvest night, submitting a blog post to Ag Experience South Dakota. You're launching the TW Angus website. You have to make some local beef deliveries and submit more content for approval. That's a 1 week for you.
Yeah, yep, that is just this week. And there were a couple things on there that I was like, oh, I forgot to include that. But
Of course, of
yeah.
course. And
And
that's
those
like,
are just things that I try to share on there because those are things I want to make sure to put on our social media just to show like here, here's behind the scenes what we do on the ranch and what I'm kind of reliable for. And those don't include the things that Tate is doing on the ranch on top of his full-time job. So it's
right.
just it's crazy all the
And
things
as
that we
any
do.
right, as any parent, mother or father knows, all the other things are in there, right? You're making
Right.
meals and you're dressing them
Right.
and putting them to bed and arguing
Yes.
with them and splitting them up when they're fighting and, all your
Yes.
regular
All the
chores.
things.
And yeah, yeah. So
Yes.
why don't you just take a couple minutes and introduce yourself and your family, talk about if you have any pets and your kids and all the good fun stuff about you being a Midwesterner.
Yeah, so, like I said, my name is Calli Williams. I'm originally from Aurora, so just outside of Brookings is where I grew up. So grew up on my parents' farm. They both worked full-time jobs, and then we had a small cattle herd on the side. So that's kind of where I fell in love with it. I was involved with 4-H and showed cattle all through from age 8 until 21. And so I'm very passionate about 4-H. I cannot wait until our two boys are old enough to start showing. So my husband Tate and I, we have two boys, Jack, who is 5, and Tommy, who is 2. So that picture that you saw where I had my coffee, veggie straws, and Motrin, that
Yeah.
kind of
Oh,
sums it up right there. We have a teething toddler, and then the veggie straws for Jack because he gets very car sick. So we
oh
have
man.
pretty plain Jane snacks in the vehicle at all times. But we are first generation ranchers. So what that entails is we purchased our acreage and started TW Angus from the ground up. So although I did grow up on a farm in a cow-calf operation, it wasn't an operation that I was going to stay on necessarily just based on size. So we still go home and help mom and dad, but we started TW Angus as our own cow-calf operation.
And there's an interesting story about kind of how all that happened and then how you met Tate and ended up getting married.
It's so funny because actually, I was working at the boutique in Brookings called Jayella with a girl named Haley. Absolutely loved working with her. She became one of my really good friends, and I was
Was it
getting
Haley
very
Kinval?
no. So actually,
Oh,
Haley
okay.
Williams
Oh,
is her
okay.
name. Now Haley Rogers, and so we were working at the boutique, and I was getting my state fair wardrobe ready. State fair, huge social event of the year, right? And she said, "Oh, well, my brother will be at the fair." And I said, "Okay." And, she's pushing for me to meet him. And she said that her brother would have Angus cattle at the fair. And I thought, there is no way you have a brother who knows anything about cattle. And just after working with her for a few months, I didn't think she would know
Mm.
anything about farming and whatsoever. And sure enough, I go and meet her brother Tate at the state fair. And he asked me to show his heifer, and the rest is history.
He
But
he
no,
asked you to
he
show his heifer.
he
Okay.
did, he did, yes. So we met at the state fair, the one and only. And I showed his heifer for him at the fair. And then so we'll skip forward a few months, started dating. And when we were in Colorado over my birthday and got engaged, when we flew home, our very first stop was to the FSA office to sign the loan papers to secure the loan for our acreage. So I always joke that he just needed a co-signer to be able to buy land. We just fast forward, just needed to get that
Yeah.
loan.
Yeah.
Really romantic.
So you got that acreage, and does that include, so that's the acres you farm and then your home where you live?
Yes, so this is the acreage where we house all of our cattle and has our home, the barns, the whole works.
Okay. And then what did you start? Okay. You guys, this is awesome. Did you happen to receive a heifer for a wedding gift?
We did. We did. So this was from a family friend on my side. We received a heifer as a wedding gift, and very special family friend of ours. Fourth grade, I'll flash back. Fourth grade, I got to skip the last 2 days of school to go West River and go branding, and that became a tradition with my dad that we would do every year. I was very rarely at the last day of school because branding was way more fun. And so then my husband was able to meet this family once we started dating, and he realized how important they were to me. And Tate just kind of fit in with them. And getting a heifer from this particular rancher was, I would say, kind of a seal of approval
Oh, so the
that we
gift
received.
was from your dad?
The heifer that we received from my dad was for Jack's first birthday. So he's a lucky little dude that he got a heifer from
Right.
grandpa for his first birthday.
That's very Midwestern, right?
So Midwestern.
Right. And so what have you grown your operation to now?
So Tate and I, we had started with strictly Angus, and then this beloved heifer that my dad gifted Jack on his first birthday, she is Simmental. And so I think that's the only way another breed was going to step foot on this property. I was
Uh,
open to Simmental, just growing up with Simmentals. I enjoyed that breed. Tate wanted to stay Angus, but it took an in-law to get a Simmental on the property. But so now, not only does Jack have Simmental, but Tommy does now as well. So for Tommy's birthday, Tate and I purchased a heifer for him as well. So
okay.
both boys have started their herd.
And so how many they've started their herd? Oh my gosh. How many do you have altogether for
We run about 60 head total right now.
60? Okay. I read an article that you wrote recently about 70, was it 70 families who in 2022 had beef from your ranch operation?
Yeah, so with our operation, what we focus on is we are being a cow-calf operation. Everything on our place has a purpose. So we are in a growing stage right now. So we are breeding so that the heifer calves, we will retain because we are trying to grow our numbers. So
Mm,
any female calves that are born, we will retain them so that we can have more cows next year. That's kind of that growing phase that we are in.
okay.
And then we have a bull sale each spring. And so those bulls are something that we sell to other livestock producers within the area. And
Okay.
then the TW Angus business that we have, the beef, where like Callie, where she gets her ground beef from us, that
Mm-hmm.
is our direct to consumer business. That beef comes from our steers that are within the feedlot. So, like I said, every animal on our property has a purpose. So the heifers
Wow.
are retained, the bull calves are sold to other producers, and then the steers enter our direct to consumer business. So this year, specifically, we had 10 steers that we fed for that retail beef business.
Okay.
And so those 10 steers, we'll see how many families they reach. But last year, just the steers that we fed out reached 70 families.
Okay. Are you trying to grow that side of your business as well?
A little bit, we are, yes.
Okay.
Like I said, we're still in that growing phase of trying to grow our cow herd first, and
Mm-hmm.
just kind of see where that gets us. But I mean, you don't know what gender of calf we're going to get. So
Very
um,
true. Very true.
yes, so we'll just kind of see. We really enjoy raising those females to grow our herd. And then also a really big focus for us is our bull sale that we host each spring.
You're selling bulls. How many do you
Yes.
sell?
Last year we had 15 bulls that we sold. That's a really big thing too, as first generation ranchers, is the marketing for that. So in South Dakota, there are bull sales every day throughout the spring and numerous bull sales in the spring. A lot of our friends are in that business, but they are third, fourth, fifth generation ranchers doing this. And so, as first generation ranchers, it's been crucial and kind of a almost a struggle, I'll say, to promote our name and to promote our genetics, and just kind of get our name out there. And we are smaller numbers considering we started from scratch. So this was our second year having an online bull sale. So hopefully next year, it's, 20 head, and then the fourth year, 30 head, and just continue growing.
So that's something I've never really thought about, is the marketing of having bulls or having name recognition. So It sounds like it's a little bit competitive. And then the teaching or the awareness then of, like you said, your genetics, all those things come into play, and the rest of us are just we're just buying hamburger.
Exactly. There's a lot behind the scenes, and it could take years to get that recognition.
What other challenges have you and Tate come up against because you're first generation ranchers?
The capital can be another thing for getting the land, getting the equipment. Our first few years here, we were doing everything with a skid loader, didn't have a tractor. And we learned quickly, what areas of our property is where, all the water runs to, or, the areas that get really muddy. So, don't try to work cattle in this part of the property, or just growing pains. But the year that we bought a tractor was really exciting. Looking back, I thought, how the heck did we do everything with just a skid loader? But you just,
Right.
you were so determined, you did it. And like I said, the name recognition and marketing, that's probably the biggest thing. And the big reason of why we launched TW Angus Beef to do the direct to consumer beef business is because we not only saw the need for people wanting to know the rancher and know where their beef came from, but also because our numbers were small, if we were to take our steers to the sale barn, because our numbers were small, we were getting hurt at the sale barn price wise. We didn't have enough steers for someone at the sale barn who was considered an order buyer, so someone who was buying for a larger feedlot, to pay those premium prices. And so, only having 8 to 10 head or a dozen head, we were getting dinged pretty bad. And so we thought, we have to do something else. We have to diversify. What can we do? And as someone who is very passionate about, the quality of the beef that we raise, I knew this was the route to take, and we were fortunate to have support of consumers. And luckily, there were people who were like Calli and other customers who were willing to put beef directly in their freezer.
And did you used to do like quarter, would they call it like a quarter beef?
Yes, and we still do that as well. So we have the shares available. We have we have a wait list on that for 2024
good for
already.
You.
We do, yes. So anyone listening, if you're interested, be sure to get on the wait list.
Yeah.
But we offer the beef shares, and then we launched these beef bundles just because beef shares, I mean, they do take up some freezer space, and it can be a little intimidating to purchase that up front sometimes. And so these beef bundles were an option if people wanted beef delivered on a more consistent basis, whether that was monthly or every other month, for an option.
So somebody like me, who I did not grow up on a farm, I really don't know much, but I love beef. When you say like a quarter beef, and some people don't have as much room in the freezer, I mean, what are we talking, like 10 roasts and 8 steak? I mean,
yeah. So
how many pounds does that end up being?
Right. That is the beauty of, if you reserve a quarter beef with us, what you are getting is X amount of pounds based on, when a steer is finished, but it's roughly a little over 200 pounds, most likely, that you are going to get.
Oh my gosh.
This is the beauty of it, is when the locker or, the beef processor calls, you get to choose how you want your beef processed. So if you want mostly, those roasts, instead of getting so many roasts, you can get more ground beef. Or how you want your steaks cut, you get to decide, the thickness of your steaks. Or if you want your steaks individually wrapped or wrapped in packs of 2, like, that is what is so wonderful about choosing to get a beef share directly from a rancher.
So the beef bundles, then how's that different? What does that look like? Because I am very interested in that, and I haven't ever asked Callie. I just know that she really likes getting the beef from you. So,
So, with the beef bundles, we take a few steers directly to the locker that is inspected beef. So then we are able to make what we call our beef bundles, where it's a variety of ground beef, roast steaks, and we kind of rotate what the bundles entail. So there's different price point options. We do an option during the football season where it's more of what you would take to a football game, where it's beef patties as well as ground beef in the 1 pound packages. And so, like I said, just different price point options and not such big quantities like a beef share would be.
are they grazing out in the grass? Do you move them up at the winter? Where are they at?
So right now, they are all, well, this weekend we weaned our calves. So everything was out on pasture, but we brought all the calves home. So the ranch is no
Mm.
longer a quiet oasis. They're a little loud right now, but that will only be for about 48 hours. But so the calves are home. And cows are still out on grass. As soon as the neighbors are done combining corn, our cows will go to corn stalks. So
Hmm.
we are fortunate to rent corn stalks from some of our neighbors, and they will have the opportunity to graze those stalks for a few months, depending on the weather. As soon as we get a hard snow or some ice, then they will have to come home, and that is when we will start feeding hay and just their winter diet or ration that we put together. And then we start calving about the end of January. So we like to have all the cows home, usually early December, for sure by Christmas.
Do they calve different? You have different windows, right? Like so many of this, and then in so many days, there's going to be more throughout the
Yep,
springtime.
correct. So we AI is what it's called. So artificially inseminate. So everything we know exactly or have a pretty good idea of when they are supposed to calve. We'll start the last week or so in January. There's always some that come early. It's a nice little surprise.
Mm.
And then should be done about it's like a 45-day window and we'll be done.
And you hope for no blizzards and all of that kind of thing, I'm sure,
Exactly.
during that time, right?
Exactly. Yes, it's always brutally cold, but
Oh gosh, yeah. And so then you keep them up there. Then come spring, you're moving them back out away
Mhm.
from out into the pastures, right? And they're out
Correct.
roaming and
Correct. Yep. So we keep everything home at our place until about the end of May or until the first week of June, depending on, how the spring is, if we get rain or how the pastures are.
Mhm.
And then our property here at home is actually in a CRP contract. So we are unable to graze the grass around our house. We have
Mm.
1 more year in that contract. And then we are so excited that we will be able to convert it to grass where our cows could be here a little longer.
Okay.
Then we actually haul our cattle to two separate pastures. And that, again, as first generation ranchers, that is just another expense right now
Mm.
of renting pasture from other landowners. But we're very fortunate to at least have pasture in the area that we can rent. So we have pasture near Artesian, which is about 20 miles from here, where half of our herd goes. And then the other half goes to the Avon area, which is where Tate's family is originally from. So it's kind of cool to see it back where his grandma lived. And so it's always a family road trip. That's where the photo was that we were hauling calves home from yesterday, is from Avon.
What are do you don't have any crops, right?
We do not.
Not
Nope.
doing any crops. What are some of the issues, the challenges that come up then? Is it the blizzards? Is it the high heat? You guys have dealt with some incredibly high temperatures this summer. So, what are some of those things that you have to deal with as challenges as
So
ranchers?
during calving season, we can run into those blizzards and the freezing cold temperatures that I had kind of mentioned. But during calving season, we are like clockwork outside. And so we get those calves in, which if it's going to be, awful cold, we have those cows inside to calve. We're not going to have those cows or calves born outside. So we're very fortunate there to have barns that we can move them into. But it's when they're a couple weeks old or even a month or two old that the blizzards hit, in April. Those are what are really hard to battle through.
Mm.
If those calves are, dealing with the high winds and heavy wet snow, that can be really dangerous. So just getting through the April, May blizzards too. I mean, we've had those. Those are
Yeah.
tough. And then other Mother Nature battles can be lack of moisture, for the sake of pastures, as well as, as cattle feeders, not putting up crops ourselves. We still deal with, the pains of it because we're
Oh,
buying feed. And so we have that expense of feeding cattle. We're fortunate to have some ground where we're able to put up hay, but we still buy a large portion of our hay. So we have that expense as well as the feedlot cattle that enter our direct to consumer or retail beef. I mean, that's a lot of corn and oats and distillers that we're purchasing. So we feel the same expenses that the farmers feel depending on what Mother Nature hands to them. So it's full circle. Whatever they feel, we feel it on our end as well.
which of the equipment do you drive? The tractor? We drive the skid steer or the loader?
I do. It was so funny. Last night I was telling Jack, that our oldest son, that I might need to hop in the tractor for a second to help Daddy. And he said, "You can drive the tractor?" I said, "Yes, Jack." It's a skid loader I don't like to drive.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. So no, I'm willing to the tractor I'm comfortable with. The skid loader I can drive, but it's funny, our skid loader and able to run the bucket, it's foot powered. And by the time I reach the pedals to run the bucket, I'm off the seat, and so it shuts off.
Oh,
So I'm a little too short.
a little short. So you grew up on a farm. What surprises you most now about being, first generation rancher, husband, couple kids?
I don't know about surprise me, but I just that much more respect for my parents.
Mm.
I mean, I knew they both worked full-time jobs and had cattle, but I don't know that I realized how much went into it. I was so used to my dad doing the morning chores and being gone before the sun came up every single day. And now that my husband and I are doing that, I don't know if I realized, how much went into all of that and how much he sacrificed for it. And now Jack is just starting sports. I mean, he's 5 years old and starting sports. And I'm already worried about missing games or, what's going to happen when he gets older. And yeah, it's crazy how much you are willing to do to make all those things work.
Mm-hmm. You'll have some mom guilt, but that's part of being a mom, right?
Hmm.
You need to do some of the things for yourself and your family too.
Right.
What's it like working alongside your husband? You're a team. You run this ranch. You both have full-time jobs. So,
Oh, I married an ox, to be honest. He is such a worker and a machine. I have to tell him to just turn off sometimes. He is such a hard worker and he is a great teammate. I will say our communication has changed quite a bit since having kids. There's a funny story when we were first engaged. We were working cattle at our place, and so hadn't had this place for very long. And we had borrowed someone's panels to be able to work our cows, and things were not going smoothly. His uncle was here, who does not come from a farming background. And based on how things were going, and when I walked away, his uncle thought the wedding wasn't going to happen.
oh my.
And and later that night, we were just all out for supper and like nothing had happened. And his uncle had to confront us and say, what the heck?
Mm-hmm.
And then we just said, well, that's just working cows. That's
That's
that's kind of
marriage,
yeah, that's
right?
kind of
I
how it
mean,
goes. And
yeah.
now having children, none of that happens in front of them. Um, it's everything is so much smoother and calmer, and we have figured out our property. We have figured out our cattle herd much better. We've figured out how to work as a team around livestock and around each other much better. He's such a great teammate, and yeah, just everything's much smoother.
Right. Would you like to see your boys be the second generation of the TW Angus Ranch?
I really hope so. We have put so much into this. I hope one of them surely enjoys it. It's such a great way to raise children that I hope they at least see that part of it, being outside and being around animals and being able to care for the land and the livestock is such a beautiful thing. So I really hope they enjoy it. And then between TW Angus and then my husband working for his family business, there's that to maybe have one of them be a part of as well. So
Oh,
between the
sure.
two, we hope, they carry on one of those traditions.
Not only first generation, you guys are millennial farmers, but you're a woman in ranching.
Yes, yes.
And I've seen some stats on that, and that is pretty low, even just at any age, but a young
Yes.
age like you. And so you represent very well in not just the state of South Dakota. It looks like you do some other things too, but I see that you were recently nominated for Farmer Rancher of the Year for, was it Dakota Fest?
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was pretty cool. I mean, I
That
think
was
those
a
things
huge
happen. That's
honor.
not the only time. Yeah.
That was exciting. That was very exciting.
Did I say it right?
Yes, it was for the Dakota Fest Woman Farmer Rancher of the Year.
And that's a big ag event that happens kind of Northern Plains overall. It's not just one little area, right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's like a big farm show held conveniently right here in Mitchell.
Oh, it is. Oh,
It
yeah, that's
is. Yes.
right. Big
Hmm.
outdoor. That's right.
Yes.
Okay. How about the boys? Do they have their favorite? Tommy maybe is too young, right, to do much, but
Oh, he helps. So they both are very active outside with us. Jack, he will assist with anything that involves, tractors, equipment, anything like that. Tommy will also try to do that. But when it comes to bucket chores, Tommy is very OCD. He wants them done the same way every single time. He will bring us the buckets to fill them with grain every night. We have a goat that we gifted Jack for his 5th birthday, and Tommy has taken over chores. We got this goat as a responsibility builder for our 5-year-old, and those chores were quickly pawned off on the 2-year-old because the 2-year-old fell in love with the goat.
oh,
And so now Tommy every night is out feeding the goat and brushes her, and they absolutely love being a part of chores. They don't miss out on chores. It could be raining, snowing, and they will throw a fit if they don't get to participate in chores.
when you post your social media, you guys are always out there together, and those boys are having a blast. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They don't realize it's work, but they would,
Right.
I think you're right. It seems like they would feel left out, hurt, upset, probably cry if they couldn't be involved in some of the things that you guys are doing.
There are more tears if they either don't get to go outside or have to go inside, and they do not get to skip bath time ever. We'll just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're out in the dirt, they're playing and
Yes.
whatever. What's your goat's name?
Gracie the goat.
Gracie the goat, and you just have
Mhm.
one random goat.
Yep, just one random goat. She's
What
well
about
loved.
chickens? Let's talk about chickens for a minute because I
Mm.
thought that you had chickens because you had some farm fresh eggs. But
I
let's talk
will
about chickens.
I will gladly pay an arm and a leg for farm fresh eggs because there will never be chickens on this farm. I have the nickname of Callie Bird, and I am deathly afraid of chickens. Yeah, chickens will just never be here.
Did something happen to you in your life? Did you have chickens growing up? Why are you afraid of them? Do you eat
Just
chicken?
don't. So I finally will prepare chicken, but it took me until my adult years to be okay with preparing chicken. I just no horror stories or anything from a chicken. I just do not like them. I have had good friends of mine try to drag me through the chicken barns at the state fair. I have friends who had chickens growing up, and I would make their little sisters walk me to my car after sleepovers. I can't do it. I don't like them. And at Miss South Dakota, that was one of my fun facts. And so the onstage question, the announcer, the MC had asked, something about chickens, and that's all I heard was chickens. And I specifically remember backpedaling on the stage, thinking there was going to be a chicken coming from the wings of the stage. And I was so afraid that there was a chicken on the Miss South Dakota stage.
Well, what do you want people to know about ranching? Are there any, misconceptions or misunderstandings or anything that you're like, anytime I have the opportunity, I really just want people to know this? Is there something like that you want to share?
I think ranching does get highlighted quite often. I mean, we get in the news often for negative things, and I'm not going to bring up the negative things, but I would like to say just how beautiful ranching is, and that I open the door for anyone to come out and visit us, no matter the season, no matter the time. If you want to come see calving, if you want to see what weaning season is like, if you want to come out and ask questions, we are always open. But I think ranching is just one of the most beautiful things out there, because we are not only bringing life into the world with calving season, but also taking care of the land as well. We are rotational grazing. We are taking care of the prairie. And then we're raising the next generation at the same time out in the fresh air. I just think it's such a great lifestyle. And ranchers are always willing to visit with you and answer those questions, and anything that anyone has in their mind that is negative about this industry, they're willing to visit with you about.
Do you and Tate have a goal to be full-time ranchers?
We would love it. We really would. His family business, though, is such a passion of his, and he is so proud to be a part of that. But I myself am very fortunate as well to have a career that is flexible, where I am here a majority of the time. But if I could be full-time, I would love it. I really would. We just, at this point, we have kind of hit a capacity land-wise of how many head we can have. But if we could grow to be to a point where we have enough cattle to keep one of us home full-time, that would be incredible.
What is agritourism? I've heard that used a little bit lately. And so now we're kind of transitioning. Oh, wait, before we do that, though, I want to make sure that I want people to know where they can find TW Angus on social media and where people can order. So whether they're doing these quarter beefs or the bundles.
So for right now, if you follow TW Angus on Facebook, that's a great way to stay in tune to the bundles that we have, as well as the shares, beef shares. My personal Instagram is where we do more behind the scenes, which is just specifically my name, Calli_Williams, and Calli is Calli. But our website will be twangus.com.
And if they're like, well, I want to get some of that beef, but where do I have to live?
Yes. So we make deliveries within Mitchell whenever needed. But then I also make deliveries to the Sioux Falls area as well as the Brookings area. I can do those on a monthly basis. We just, as soon as the orders come in, we try to group them together so that we are doing multiple deliveries at a time. So, sure. You cannot order directly through the website. What it will do is just prompt me a message that you are looking to order, and then I will get in touch with you with a delivery date.
Wow, that's really personalized. That's cool. So what's agritourism? Agritourism.
Yes, agritourism is really booming right now. So that is a mix of agriculture and tourism. So it's people hosting, if there was a corn maze on your property, or a farm to table, a supper on your farm or ranch, things like that. And it's something that we are hoping to include at TW Angus in the near future. So again, look for those show notes to be able to follow us on social media to stay tuned of what we're going to do with agritourism in the future. But it is really booming. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's booming. And like I said, with ranchers and farmers having that, open door policy, that's agritourism is what it is. Where we are just inviting you in. We want to show you what we do and give you that full experience.
So does the agritourism include, there's a lot of these, like the slow flower movement, these people who are growing their beautiful flowers and doing little farm stands and vegetables for farmers markets, things like that. Does it include places like that, or apple orchards? Would that be considered agritourism?
Yes, that could be included. Okay. Yep. Farm stands, apple orchards, all those kinds of things could be included.
And I know that TW Angus, you guys are involved in, for sure, I know the South Dakota Cattlemen's Foundation, because you helped support the gala that they have that do Feeding South Dakota.
We are involved with the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association. That's kind of the biggie that we really focus with. And then through the South Dakota Cattlemen's Association, we are part of the Davison-Hanson Cattlemen's Association. It's an affiliate. So we helped start that association, as well as the Young Cattlemen's of South Dakota. So it's a group. We kind of saw a need for, there's a few of us, we saw a need for a group that you go to college and then there's that age gap between you're fresh out of college, you're not in school sports or anything anymore, but then you don't necessarily feel maybe old enough for all the other associations that your
Mm.
parents are involved in. And so we're like, what can we do here? And so it's still a part of the South Dakota Cattlemen's. It's just kind of trying to link that fresh out of college age, and just include up to age 40 is
That
is what we're doing there. And so
that's a
that's brand new.
fantastic idea. Okay.
Yeah, it was just, try to keep them involved. Don't lose them that fresh out of college. Don't lose them until they're 40. Try and retain them so we're not starting over.
Hmm. Well, let's move into some of my favorite part, which is talking about cooking, baking, recipes. And you had posted this. I think you guys were on a way to family reunion,
Mhm.
and you had this graham streusel coffee cake, and I'm like, I need to know about that. So
Yes.
let's tell me about. It must have been a handed down recipe.
Yes. So this is from my grandma Vanita, which is on my dad's side. She calls it graham streusel. I call it coffee cake. It
Oh
is
yeah.
it is so delicious. She actually brought it. So she brought it to our wedding, the day after our wedding when we were tearing down all the tent, the decoration,
Mm.
all that. And my in-laws were devouring it. They loved it. And I had always loved it, but after that, I kind of adopted it as something that I would take to holidays and
Oh.
events. And then I started taking it when I had an office job in town here. I took it to potlucks and things like that. And it's A, easy. B, everybody loves it. You cannot go wrong with it. And I called it a coffee cake just because it does not need to be saved for dessert. It goes beautifully with coffee. It
Is it
is so
something?
good.
Do you do it in a bundt pan or any kind of pan?
I do it in a 9 by 13.
A 9 by 13. Okay.
Hmm. Yes.
And did I say, is it a graham, like graham crackers? Or did you say graham, like grams, like grandma? Am I
Oh, grams
saying it
like graham
wrong?
crackers.
Oh,
No, you're
okay.
right. Yep. So, because
Maybe
the
I'm
base
saying it
is the
wrong.
graham cracker crumbs.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Hmm.
Is there
No, and
icing on it?
it's just your confectioner's sugar and so your icing on top is homemade, but it is so good. So
Okay.
good.
Okay.
It never fails. If I share a photo of that, it doesn't matter what stage of the baking process I'm in, people ask for the recipe because it is so good.
And where does your grandma live that this came from?
In Illinois, so both of my parents are
Oh,
originally from Illinois.
oh,
Mm.
okay.
Whenever we would go back to Illinois to see family, Grandma and I would bake. And that was one that I never baked that specific dish with her, but it was always on the table. I remember it always being in this. She would make it in a stone 9 by 13 Pampered Chef dish.
Sure.
I
Yep.
remember that. Yep. It was always there, never failed.
What other things do you remember baking with her? And Illinois, yay, that's still the Midwest.
Yes, it is. Um, my dad called them snow plowed cookies because they were like a molasses cookie, and then you'd put the powdered sugar on top. And so
Mm.
when the cookie would crack, he thought it looked like a plowed field with snow on it. And so I don't know what she actually called them because every recipe card they became snow plowed cookies. But
I love the name.
yeah, so molasses cookies, we'll say. And then she would just bake anything, any kind of cookie, any kind of cake. She has a really good recipe that it's an ice cream bar with shredded coconut on top.
Oh, okay.
There's so good. She was and is a phenomenal baker.
Hmm. Does she have well, you said that she always has this cake ready. I remember my grandma, she would always have the cookie jar filled with homemade cookies.
And so hers wasn't so much a jar. It was you go to her kitchen and it was the counter had the table that everybody sat around. Always had that 9 by 13 something in it. It was
Okay.
a full dish of something freshly baked was in there.
Sure. The
Mhm.
cookie jar theory, I think, is a little more lost, right? Like I don't use the cookie jar.
But my
I
dad,
have,
we joke he has a sixth sense for that because my mom, if she picks up, she doesn't bake, but if she picks up Oreos or something, it's like my dad knows. Within minutes, his hand is going towards that cookie jar. and he finds them.
How about a favorite beef recipe or some favorite? What are some of your, I mean, obviously you eat beef.
Yes, yes, we do.
What's one of your sort of a go-to weeknight meal that's kind of quick that has beef?
Our go-to weeknight meal would have to be tacos when we
Mm.
are really busy. It's protein packed. We are really big fans of using avocados too. So we'll use those on our tortilla shell, almost like people would use sour cream. We love tacos because whether the boys are playing outside or if we are going to be on the go for pasture checks or something, I can roll those up into our to-go containers for the whole family, and we can have our tacos on the run. So that is our weeknight protein-packed, beef meal. But something that I absolutely love as like a more hearty meal is a beef roast. So we really enjoy our chuck roasts, and then what we like to do is on night number two from our leftovers from a roast is to make burritos. So I'll take the leftover
Oh,
roast and shred it and make burritos.
oh,
And
that
that might,
sounds good.
oh, they're so good. And that might be my husband's favorite dish that I make is the shredded burritos. I think he goes light on the roast the first night because he wants burritos on night number two.
He wants to make sure there's leftovers,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's awesome. You said you have a family to go or not to go, but you're taking stuff out with you. You don't always get to just sit around a
Hmm.
traditional table and have a 6 o'clock meal.
Right.
Sometimes you have to pack that up and out you go, and you might be in the field or something.
Yeah. If we want to be together, there's many nights where the boys, I want us all to be with Tate or, with each
Mm.
other. And that would mean being in the pickup together if we're going to go check cows or, be at least in the vicinity of one another out in the barnyard or in the shed while working on equipment or something. So,
Yeah, that's really
yeah.
sweet. What about coffee? I know that you drink coffee. I asked Callie, what would you say that I should talk to Callie about? And she's like, definitely ranch life and being a boy mom and coffee and fashion. I think those are some of the things that she said. So,
Oh, I love
and
it.
you've got your cup of coffee when you're doing your stories. Do you just do black coffee? I mean, I live in the country too. We don't get to
Here,
just
I have
run
my
to a coffee
coffee.
shop. See, oh, cute. Yeah.
Uh,
And do you have a coffee drink that you make at home?
so we're very fortunate. One of Tate's sisters actually owns and manages a coffee shop in Sioux Falls called The Source. And so they have their own beans in house. They roast their own beans in house, and so we get our beans from The Source. So if anybody is in the Sioux Falls area, you can get your beans from there. And so we feel very spoiled. But I have a specific bean or blend that she roast there called the 605. And
Oh,
so we grind our beans every day at home. And so I have those, and then I add almond milk to my coffee. And that's what I do every day at home. If I go to town, I am a dirty chai latte. That is my go-to, dirty chai.
okay.
So it's a chai latte with espresso.
So when you say go to town, does that mean Mitchell?
Yes.
What does your
Yep.
go to town mean? Okay.
Yes, when I'm
Yeah.
in town for coffee, I guess.
Okay.
Mhm.
What are some, if somebody's in the area, we used to go to Mitchell for hockey. We were hockey parents. Both our daughter and son played hockey, so lots of time in Mitchell. If people are in that area and they're looking for a coffee shop or a place to eat, what are some of your recommendations?
The back 40 is a good spot if you were going for lunch or supper. Otherwise, the depot, that's always good. Coffee wise, though, Starbucks can't go wrong.
There's a
Uh,
Starbucks in Mitchell.
we just got a Starbucks.
I knew
Yes.
there's a Caribou or a couple
Yep.
actually, because there's one in the grocery store, but you got a Starbucks. Where's that at now? By
So
the
it's out
Caribou?
near the interstate. Yeah, kind of. Yep. But for supporting local Hot Shots Espresso, they have good
Oh.
coffee as well.
So you took a trip recently to Wyoming. Did you go pick up a new scale?
Yes, so
Right.
we purchased a scale so that we can weigh our cattle. And that was located in Harrison, Nebraska, which is just 2 hours from Casper. So Tate and I made the road trip. And so it was roughly like 30-ish hours in Casper, and we did as much as possible. I think we hit 11 or 12 places while we were there. We were on a mission. That's
Unbelievable.
something when we travel, we want to check out all the spots. And so we went to fun restaurants. There's a really cool Western store in Casper that is 4 stories. And so we went shopping in there, went and met my team that I work with. The Wyoming Livestock Roundup is my employer. So I hung out
Okay.
with them. It was just fantastic. And that was coming off of the 100 and some degree week that we had just had here in South Dakota. So to go west to Casper and that clear, cooler mountain air was perfect.
Refreshing and a
Oh,
little time away from the boys. You don't get that very
yeah,
often. So
we
you
don't.
need to do that sometimes too. Yeah.
Yep. And it was going to be a lot of windshield time too. And we thought it'd be, a good kind of a date, we'll call it.
Mm-hmm.
And no, and neither one of us had been in Casper before. So we were really excited to explore and have a little weekend getaway.
Right. Pictures were beautiful. It looked like you had a lot of fun there. So,
We had so much fun. We fell in love with Casper, and there were a few places we didn't get to. We want to go back
well,
badly.
if your employer's there, you'll end up going
Yeah,
back, right?
exactly. The last time we tried to go was last December, and we jinxed it, and that's when a blizzard came and the interstate closed. And
Oh,
so we were like, let's go in August.
yeah. So we like to read in our family, and I like to share a lot of what I end up reading are recommendations from people. But do the boys have a favorite book
So
that you
Jack has
read to
been
them?
so excited this year with Beginner Garden. He gets to go to the library every day and they get to check out 2 books each time. And so every night we've been reading these 2 books, and the kiddo I think he's brought home the same, probably 8 books on rotation. And they've always been about horses or construction. So I think we
Oh,
know, what fields he's into. But when we are reading books from home, they like the Little Blue Truck books. So I
okay.
don't know if you're familiar with those,
No.
um, but they're really good books. So we like Little Blue Truck, and we like anything involving animals. There's some really good books that were by C.J. Brown. It's an artist well known within the Angus industry, and they're just beautifully painted.
Yeah,
They're well done and just recognize the beef industry really well. And the kiddos love
perfect.
them.
What are some other, just challenges of being a mom and you're an entrepreneur? And where do you get your refueling? Do you have a community of friends or?
I would say I'm very fortunate that I'm married into a really supportive family.
Mm,
So I am an only child. My parents are very supportive, but they are about 100 miles away which isn't far in South Dakota terms. Um, but they have, like I said, they have cattle as well. So when you have livestock, you're pretty grounded. You don't get to just up
oh,
and leave very often, which I fully understand. But when you need help, that makes it kind of difficult. But Tate's family is fairly big, and they are kind of our saving grace, I'll say. He's the baby of the family, but he has 2 sisters and a brother that would do anything for us. They have such great positive energy, and they are so supportive, and they all have kids. There are, including our 2 boys, 7 littles, so 7 cousins, and
those are the best.
they are the best, and they are all age 6 and under.
Oh my gosh.
So they are really close, and we get them together as often as we can. And that is probably like the biggest energy source for me. I
Okay.
mean, it can be kind of obviously stressful to schedule those things and what
Mhm.
have you, but just having that family time is the best. But also, like I said, the support system. But Tate and I are also the kind of people that reaching our goals is what really gets us motivated and gets us recharged, and just being home and focusing on what we need to get done and the tasks at hand. We're both wired the same way. So that's what keeps us going.
And you're doing growing things. You're not just, here's my list of things to do. They always include, it seems like, something future that you're growing, you're making, it's beautiful to watch. So
Thank you. It feels
yeah.
like that sometimes, but yeah, there's always something else on the horizon. I think that's what keeps us fueled.
What do you like about living in the Midwest?
I found that out when I had an internship in Ohio. That's when it really came clear to me. I like being able to see literally as far as your eye can see. When I was in Ohio, there were so many trees, and I wasn't homesick until I couldn't find a true sunset. In South Dakota, you never miss a sunset or a
Right.
sunrise, whichever you want to see, unless, with these Canada fires, the smoke has kind of made things a little
Mm.
tricky. But the beauty of the Midwest is just our skies and our rolling plains, or, you go west and you have your hills, but you can still see. And I just think it's so beautiful here, and I wouldn't trade it.
Do you garden? Do
We do.
you
Yes, we
do?
do. We do.
Just vegetables and things for yourselves, right? You don't, you're not
Yes.
trying to do
No, the
extra.
way we describe it is we garden just enough to be able to make some fresh salsa.
Mm.
Nothing over the top.
Do the boys help with that? I bet they love
They
that. They have to
they
water and
do.
things. Yeah.
Yes, they like watering. Tommy hasn't figured out that you only pick red tomatoes, not green tomatoes, but
Mm.
he's out there helping. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's
And
fun.
yeah, is there anything else you want to share? What do you want to just share with people about you or your family before we go?
Oh, I think we covered it all. I just really appreciate you taking the time to visit with us and just let us share our story as first generation ranchers, and just kind of let us talk about how, we are trying to have everything on our ranch has a purpose. Like I said, between our bull sale and our retail beef and just raising two boys in the ranching industry. We are very thankful to be able to have this lifestyle. So I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, thank you for sharing with everyone here too. It really is fun to hear from people the real people who are actually out there doing this work and creating the Midwest, the ag industry as it is, which is so wonderful. This will be fun to watch you grow and watch TW Angus grow. And, maybe I'll be around long enough to see one of those boys take over. And depending on
Yes.
which one, you might have some horses added, it sounds like.
Oh, I think so.
Some construction equipment and
I think there'll be a nice mix.
yeah. But I do appreciate how busy you are and that you spent time with us. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, now I know what books to gift to our youngest nephew in Salt Lake City. There is a heartbreaking part to Calli's story. Sadly, Grandma Vanita passed away on September 21st, just a couple of weeks after we recorded this episode together. I read her obituary online, and the tribute wall is just brimming with remembrances about Vanita. Like Evie Gardner, she wrote, "She never hid her love for Jesus and for people. She always had a unique twist on just about everything that always made us laugh." And I especially like this one from the Leroy Green family. The Green family lived just down the road from Vanita and Harold's family when we were growing up. We have many fond memories of Vanita providing summer snacks for all of us, usually Kool-Aid and cookies, refereeing our numerous backyard sporting events/fights, and being a guardian angel to all the kids in our neighborhood. She was a strong woman who raised 5 kids, worked tirelessly at home and outside the home. She was always a giver to your faith, family, and friends. We will miss her beautiful smile and contagious laughter. Thank you, Vanita, for being part of our lives. And now, through Calli's story and her sharing of Vanita's coffee cake recipe, she'll be part of our lives too. So thank you for sharing, Calli. The recipe is on randomsweets.com, and be sure to visit Calli and Tate's website, twangus.com. You can also find them on Facebook at twangus, and Calli's on Instagram at Calli_Williams, and it's Calli spelled CALLI_Williams. And to order beef or talk about the bull sale they have in the spring or ask other questions, you can call Calli at 605-695-1990, or just send her an email at callicwilliams@gmail.com. So that's callicwilliams@gmail.com. Thanks for pressing play today. I have an interesting blend of guests this season, so stay tuned next week for Tyler Backus from Galen's Popcorn in Madison, South Dakota. And after that, you'll hear from a young mom whose young daughter joins her in the kitchen. And then I have my first Michigan guest who shares her go-to allergen-free chocolate chip cookie recipe and her dad's Venezuelan arepas recipe. I'll also be sitting down this season with Minnesota-made Nordic Waffles founder and owner, Stina Asland, and a pair of friends who gather their big friend circle for a night of gigantic Chex Mix batch making for the holidays. So be sure to subscribe to Funeral Potatoes and Wool Mittens and set up for notifications so you don't miss a thing. I'm Stacy Mergenthal. Sweet wishes.